97.5 The Game Podcasting is sponsored by Modern Exterminating, a family-oriented company. Professional, honest, and dependable pest control solutions. We're your one-stop shop for all pests.
He just gets better and better. Denny Hamlin going to get his fourth victory here at Michigan International Speedway. Exclamation point to finish it in the Irish Hills for driver 11.
That was a call on Prime on Sunday as Denny Hamlin picks up another win, second points-paying win in a row for him at Michigan International Speedway in the Firekeepers Casino 400, doing it by a pretty significant margin, 11.11 seconds for the 11 car with that victory. As we welcome in our guy Doug Turnbull on the Performance Racing Network on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. 2 weeks in a row, he has to start at the back. Last week for a restart violation at the start of the race, then this week for adjustments made after qualifying, where he did win the pole, and after 400 miles, finds himself at the front and just ends up pulling away from the pack. So you can throw a lot of challenges at Denny Hamlin, but he'll find his way to the front and right now find his way to victory lane once again.
Gosh, yeah, and good afternoon to you and everybody out there. And, yeah, absolutely right about Hamlin. I don't know what different to say about him than Nashville, except maybe his car was at one point less dominant in this race. It took him a little longer to get to the front, and he spun out in the middle of the race as opposed to having to pass through a penalty at the beginning like he did in Nashville. Had to start at the back. I mean, it is Hamlin season, SZN, Hamlin season. And I know that this win, and he won by in the 11 car the week that Ned Jarrett died, or the days after Ned Jarrett died, he wins in the 11 car that Ned Jarrett drove. He won by 11.11 seconds. I thought that was pretty interesting for a numeroid like me. And what can you say? Now, I will say he didn't have an 11 seconds better car than the rest of the field. This wasn't Shane Van Gisbergen at a road course. Right. It was clean air, and the second, third, and fourth place guys racing the heck out of each other, all desperate for that win and desperate to finish second, right? So I think that played into it as well. I think too much could be read into the finish, but it was really just the fact that he said on his show this week, my last comment about it, he said on his show this week, an emotional driver is not a good driver. Hamlin, for whatever emotions he might have, does not ever let it overcome him. I've heard him get penalties, including, I think, that passer penalty at Nashville a week ago. He never lost it on the radio, that I heard anyway. And some drivers, Carson Hocevar, right, he kind of sees red when he sees the C part, and he gets himself a little trouble, and it costs him a few spots. Hamlin makes the most of it, even when he's not the best car, and here he is, 63 wins, tied for Kyle Busch. 8th all time. And
with that 63rd win tying Kyle Busch, a great tribute after the race as well. And Denny Hamlin talked about after winning at Nashville and being one win short of tying Kyle Busch, he started putting the wheels in motion of making sure they had stuff ready for a tribute, whenever that was going to come later on the season or whatever. And lo and behold, it comes a week later. They have the stylized flag with the 8 from Richard Childress Racing, the 1 from his days at Joe Gibbs Racing, hats and all that kind of stuff. And a great moment, very reminiscent to when Dale Earnhardt won, the week after, the death of Davey Allison back in 1993 at Pocono, when he, drove around with the big flag and his number on it and paid tribute to his friend. And again, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch were longtime teammates. I believe I heard they were the longest pairing of teammates in NASCAR history on the broadcast on Sunday, which blew my mind. That's crazy. But obviously friends, competitors, and all that, and very emotional to see him tie that record, of Kyle Busch just, again, only weeks after his passing.
Certainly. And look, a lot can be made about the being teammates. It's not like they were the best buddies, but they had a tremendous respect for each other. And interestingly enough, the time where I saw maybe the lowest amount of that respect in a long, long time was actually just in recent weeks, where Hamlin had talked about Kyle Busch's abilities while he was still living, in the struggling number 8 car for Childress, right? And they kind of, but then Hamlin, or rather Busch, goes out in the media, I'm going to make it hard on him out there. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see him make that character arc back with Kyle Busch. But nonetheless, they spoke, we heard this posthumously. They had spoken. Their last words together were pretty fun and pretty high regarded. So, I think there was probably no better person in that field to win than Denny Hamlin. And think about it, the 3 drivers that have won since Kyle Busch's passing: Daniel Suarez, whom Kyle mentored when they were Joe Gibbs Racing teammates. and then Denny Hamlin 2 weeks in a row. So there's something special going on, although if you're not a Toyota right now, you probably don't feel quite as special because they're awfully fast.
Yeah, speaking of Toyotas, this spices up the race for the regular season championship even more. Tyler Reddick, of course, with his 5 wins, has had a phenomenal year so far. Gets caught up in a restart wreck on Sunday. His first finish outside the top 15, which is insane. And with Hamlin winning the race, has now cut that lead down to just 51 points. So again, with only 10 or so more races to go, or 11 more races to go until the chase starts, this championship, or lead for the championship, and those valuable 25 extra points to start the chase is going to be pretty interesting watching these two and whatever other guys can get in that mix over the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I think so. And I mean, it shows how quickly these points can turn. That's why, if you think about, there's about a 100 point or so difference between first and 16th when the chase begins, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
First and 16th. And Hamlin has made up a big chunk of that 100-point difference just in a short time with Tyler Reddick, right? He's like you said, only 50-something points back. So I think that we're taking for granted how much a win means. That's Tyler Reddick has this big lead, but also consistent running. Tyler Reddick doesn't have as many stage points as a lot of drivers, and laps led, the things that get you up front to be able to score points. And lately, he's been a decent top 10 car, but has not been top flight and up front. And Denny Hamlin has. So we're going to be neck and neck, I think, through the summer. I think Reddick, as Hamlin has said himself, is going to be the heads-up person on the road courses. And just like Tyler Reddick finally ran into some really bad luck, Hamlin's bad luck has gotten him finishing second and third. All right. When's Hamlin going to have a big goose, right? It usually evens out, doesn't it?
It usually does, and that's what's going to be fun to follow in these next handful of months as we get closer to the chase starting in late, or I guess it'll officially start in early September with the Southern 500, and who's going to have, again, that very coveted 25-point lead when it does all begin there. But a lot of headlines coming out of the race this past weekend, and what was a very chaotic and carnage-filled race, including one of the hardest hits we've seen in a while in turn number 4 between Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell. We now learn that Christopher Bell does have a wrist fracture. He is still good to go for this weekend at Pocono, but a nasty hit. Thankfully, he was able to get out of the car under his own power. But once again, as we say this all the time, a testament to the research and determination of NASCAR year after year to make these cars and tracks safer, because that was a hit that has been talked about a lot this week that 30 years ago, you might not survive.
It's hard to know, but the fact that you have a hit so hard that they have to repair the safer barrier, the flexible wall, if you will. I believe I heard Mike Ford at NASCAR Comms Walk on the NASCAR Holler Top podcast just yesterday say that was the hardest hit in the Gen 7 era. It's some ridiculous number. I don't want to repeat it wrong. And Chase Elliott's hit, by the way, that got into him, where Elliott for the third week in a row has crashed a car, by the way. Just throw that out there. But Elliott's hit was really hard, too. And thankfully, you saw camaraderie and respect between the drivers there. And Bell has had this kind of even season where he's been fast but not gotten the finishes. Now he's got the nagging injury to go along with that. How much is that going to affect the 20 team? Right? Doesn't seem like they're about to turn things around.
Absolutely. And again, as we get closer to the start of the chase coming up at the end of the summertime, things are really starting to heat up around the chase cut line. You had some good performances this past weekend from the likes of Joey Logano, Eric Jones with a second-place finish that hit his home track, and some guys that maybe we thought a couple weeks ago weren't going to be in contention and mix for those chase spots starting to heat up. And on the other side, you have guys like Brad Keselowski, Shane Van Gisbergen dropping down a few spots. So that race for those coveted top 16 spots going to be very interesting as we go through these next couple of weeks.
Without getting too specific, it's on. If you see Denny Hamlin, the best car in the field, rapidly catching the guy with 5 wins, Tyler Reddick, certainly in the back with, as I heard Michael McDowell call it one time, the squirrels, the people that are mid-pack. It's going to be wild. And gosh, what is it? I mean, 337 to, you got to go from 16th in points, Austin Cindric. You've got to go all the way to 28th in points before you even clear 100 points. All right, 16th to 28th to win 100 points. At the top of the standing, it's a lot more spread out. So there's going to be a surprise down there. But just last week, it was Shane Van Gisbergen 2 weeks in a row. He's figured out ovals. Then he has one bad week, and he's down to 14th in points, and now you're worried about him again. It means we need to take these a few weeks at a time, not one at a time.
Right. Again, talking to Doug Turnbull, the Performance Racing Network here as we do our NASCAR segment each and every week. I'm not going to be here next week, so real quick, just want to talk to you about what they're doing next weekend, which is racing at the San Diego Naval Base. And again, a unique opportunity, much like NASCAR did for the past couple years with the Chicago Street Race. They've released the renderings and the iRacing footage of what that track's going to look like. I know Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, the Athletic, were out there the other day documenting the build and all that kind of stuff, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Again, I'm not going to get to preview it with you next week, but very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, I look forward to I still haven't watched the video of it, but I heard Jeff and Jordan from the Athletics say, and also from the Teardown podcast, that very rough streets, very narrow. Now, I hear very narrow. Everybody's enraptured by this idea. I say most people are enraptured by this naval base, and I am too. But when it's a narrow racetrack with big old thundering cars that already struggle on road courses, I'm a little worried about, okay, this is really more of a spectacle than a race where we're going to see a lot of battles, you know?
Right.
But I say that, I'm trying to manifest my expectations low, so then we have just an all-out throwdown Coronado, okay?
Yeah. I certainly hope so. Should be very exciting there. Again, I'll get everything organized for next week with me not being here. But this past weekend, Bill ends up winning in our picks contest. He has the highest finish with Ryan Blaney in 8th. You were one spot behind him with Chris Buescher in 9th. And despite the fact that he was having a good run, my guy Zane Smith gets caught up in a wreck and ends up finishing 33rd. But we were all running pretty well up until that point.
Yeah, gosh, I was watching that too and trying to figure. I was thinking, did I win it? But no, I missed it by one. So you have to watch all that. Hey, one quick story before we go to the picks too. By the way, Josh Berry just announced out of the 21 car next season. Wood Brothers making that decision. So I think there's more to come as far as other drivers moving, because I have a feeling he's still going to be a Cup driver. Just a hunch, but he will not be my pick at Pocono this week. But is it somebody else pick first, right?
Yeah. So I'll get to pick first because I came in last here. I'm going to go a guy that's been hot these past couple weeks. Won the Coke 600. I'm going to go Daniel Suarez for Pocono this weekend. How about you?
Let's see. Let's go with, and I've got to take him while he's still in the heater, Eric Jones and Legacy Motor Club. They get hot every summer, and he's been on one since the early May, and he's got a decent record in the Gen 7 era at Pocono, 13th best, 2 top 10s. Eric Jones, number 43.
All right. Again, coming off a strong second-place finish at his home track, and that's going to lead Bill to picking. He's going to stay in the Toyota camp. He's going to pick Ty Gibbs this upcoming weekend, who you won with at Bristol a couple months ago.
Hey. I'll take it, man. That should be a decent pick. Toyotas are darn fast, and Chase Elliott, the best one in the Gen 7 era, he's won there. I had him on the board still, but I'm not picking him because he's been on a downtrend lately. And again, it feels Toyota. That probably means it is going to be a Chevy.
Well, I can tell you one thing. It's probably not going to be a 4. They're having a rough go of it this season.
Tough. But fuel mileage in Pocono.
Very true.
It's fuel mileage, and that shakes the deck. And we've had a bunch of cautions these last couple of weeks. Go back to the All-Star race. We've raced and drunk since the All-Star race. Since early May, we've had drunk races, all right? A lot of weird stuff. And part of the reason is because it's hard to pass once they get strung out. So restarts are desperation times. High braking tracks, and Pocono has that. Heat up those brake rotors if they can. We saw that in Nashville. So I can see Pocono being typical, and I could also see it being zany, and weird stuff happens in the Poconos on the triangle.
Hey,
okay? So, maybe it'll be a 4. Who knows?